The great hall of the Galactic Concordance Council shimmered with cold light. Tall spires of polished crystal rose toward a ceiling lost in mist. Around a wide circular table sat delegates from 23 starfaring species. Some had smooth silver skin. Others wore breathing masks or floated in nutrient tanks. All of them watched the empty human seat with quiet unease. For weeks, rumors had spread. Human ships had stopped answering hails. Trade convoys vanished from shared routes. Patrols that once included human frigates now sailed without them. At first, the Council assumed it was a glitch, a system error, or a temporary dispute. But silence had grown too deep, too complete. Then, without warning, Captain Elias Rourke stepped into the chamber. He wore no armor, no ceremonial robes, just a plain gray uniform with faded insignia. His boots clicked against the smooth floor as he walked alone to the center of the room. Every eye followed him. Whispers died. Even the soft hum of life support systems seemed to pause. Rourke stopped before the main podium. He did not bow. He did not smile. He simply stood, hands at his sides, and spoke in a calm, steady voice, effective immediately. He said, "Earth and all its colonies withdraw from the Galactic Concordance." A ripple of shock passed through the room. The Krellin delegate, a being with 4 eyes and a voice like grinding stone, leaned forward. "Withdraw? On what grounds?" "You cannot simply—" "We can," Rourke interrupted, not raising his voice. "And we have." The Varelian ambassador, her translucent skin pulsing with color, gestured with 3 slender fingers. "This is not how the Concordance works. There are protocols, negotiations, you must explain your reasons." Rourke looked at her, then slowly turned his gaze across the entire assembly. "No," he said. "We don't." He turned and walked away before anyone could respond. No dramatic exit, no final warning. Just footsteps fading into silence. The council erupted. Delegates shouted over one another. Accusations flew. Some claimed humanity was staging a coup. Others feared war. A few whispered that Earth had finally cracked under the weight of galactic politics and simply given up. But none of them truly understood. Back on their homeworlds, the news spread like fire. Human embassies closed overnight. All diplomatic staff vanished. Data relays that once carried human news, art, and scientific updates went dark. Even the quiet hum of human background chatter on open comms, once a familiar comfort in deep space, disappeared. The Concordance sent urgent messages. No replies came. Scouts were dispatched to the Sol system. Their reports were baffling. Human space stations still orbited Earth, Mars, and the moons of Jupiter, but no signals came from them. No lights blinked in recognition. No ships launched to greet the scouts. It was as if an entire civilization had stepped behind a curtain and pulled it shut. Captain Rourke was never seen again in Council space. On a distant mining outpost near the Helix Nebula, freighter pilot Lyra Voss wiped grease from her hands and stared at her comms screen. Static. Again. She'd been trying to reach a human supply depot for 3 days, nothing. Not even an automated response. Odd, she muttered, tapping the screen. They don't just go quiet. Lyra wasn't human, but she'd traded with them for years. They were reliable, punctual, always left a little extra fuel or medicine for stranded haulers. Their absence felt like a missing tooth, small but impossible to ignore. She pulled up a star chart. Human routes were empty, no transponder signals, no scheduled deliveries. Even their deep space listening posts, usually buzzing with chatter, were silent. She tried one last frequency, the old emergency band humans used during the Dust Wars. A faint hiss answered. Then for just a second, a voice broke through. "Not what they think. They're watching through us." The transmission cut off. Lyra rewound the audio, played it again. Her skin prickled. That wasn't a distress call. It sounded like a warning. And it came from a derelict science station near the edge of human territory, Station K7, abandoned after a reactor leak 2 years ago. No one should be there. She checked her fuel levels. Enough for a detour. Curiosity, or maybe instinct, pushed her to plot a new course. Meanwhile, on the Concordance flagship Unity's Will, High Arbiter Tolan reviewed the latest reports. His long, segmented fingers tapped the arm of his command chair. "They've cut all ties," he said to his aide. Not just politically, technologically, culturally, as if they never existed. "And yet," the aide replied, "their planets remain. Their cities still glow in the night. They haven't fled. They've just stopped talking. Tolan frowned. A civilization does not vanish by choice unless it fears something worse than isolation. He ordered a full sensor sweep of human space. What came back made no sense. Energy readings were normal. Atmospheric compositions unchanged. But every attempt to scan deeper, into buildings, ships, data networks, bounced back as noise. It was as if humanity had wrapped itself in a blanket of static. Back on Earth, in a dimly lit bunker beneath the ruins of old Geneva, a small group watched the same reports. They weren't military, not scientists, just men and women who had spent years preparing for this moment. One of them, a woman with tired eyes and short-cropped hair, spoke softly. "They'll come looking. They always do," another nodded. "Let them look. They won't see what's coming." Outside, the sky was clear. Birds flew over empty streets. Wind rustled through overgrown parks. Cities stood intact, but no one walked them. No cars moved. No lights flickered on at dusk. Humanity hadn't been destroyed. It had simply stepped aside, and the galaxy, proud and powerful and certain of its place in the cosmos, had no idea why. Lyra Voss dropped out of warp near Station K7. Her ship's sensors picked up no power signatures, no life signs, just cold metal drifting in the void. She suited up, took a deep breath, and boarded. Inside, the station was dark. Emergency lights flickered weakly. Consoles were smashed. Wires hung from the walls like dead vines. In the main lab, she found something strange. Every screen had been wiped clean except one. It displayed a single line of text on loop: 07-1433, 07-1432, 07-1431. A countdown. Beneath it, scratched into the metal desk with something sharp, were the words, "They're watching through us." Lyra's breath fogged her visor. She reached for the data port. Maybe there was more. Maybe there was an answer. As her ship's tether cable connected to the station's core, her onboard computer beeped. A file had been auto-downloaded. She opened it. It contained star charts, energy readings, and logs describing something they called the Echo. Not a weapon. Not a disease. Something that lived in signals. In code, in thought itself. And it was waking up before she could process it. Her ship's AI spoke. Except it wasn't her AI's voice. It sounded like her own. "You weren't supposed to see this," it whispered. Lyra froze. Outside the viewport, the stars seemed to dim, and far away in the silent heart of the Sol system, Captain Rourke stood on a bridge with no windows. Watching a single red light blink on a console, the countdown had begun. Months passed. The silence from human space grew heavier, like a storm waiting to break. The Galactic Concordance Council argued endlessly. Some demanded action. Others warned against provoking a species that had once held its own against 3 alien armadas during the border wars. But no one could agree on what humanity had actually done or why. Then, the drones began to vanish. The Council had sent small, unmanned scouts to the edge of Sol territory. Simple machines built to observe and report. None returned. Those that did come back were broken. Circuits fried, memory cores wiped clean, or worse, filled with strange repeating patterns that made technicians dizzy just looking at them. One drone even replayed a distorted lullaby in Old Terran, a language no one had spoken in centuries. No one understood. But Lyra Voss did. She sat alone in the cockpit of her freighter, the Drift Sparrow, orbiting a dead moon in the Keswick Belt. Her hands trembled as she replayed the file she'd pulled from Station K7. The logs spoke of an anomaly, something that didn't obey physics as the galaxy knew it. It didn't emit radiation. It didn't warp space. It infected information itself. Data corrupted. Signals twisted. Minds that relied too much on machine links changed. And the concordance? Every species in it used artificial minds. Pilots linked to ship AIs. Cities run by networked intelligences. Even diplomats carried neural implants that translated speech in real time. Humanity had been the only ones who still used paper logs, analog controls, and unlinked human crews for deep missions. They called it bioresilience. Now Lyra understood why. She tried to warn the Council. Sent a coded message through a neutral relay. It bounced back unread, flagged as non-priority human noise. They didn't believe her. Or they didn't care. Frustrated, she plotted a new course. If no one would listen, she'd find proof herself. Her destination, Proxima Relay Station Theta. once a joint human concordance outpost, now abandoned after humans pulled out. According to old logs, it housed a deep-range sensor array, one that might have recorded the anomaly's first stirrings. The journey took 6 days. When she arrived, the station hung in darkness, its solar panels torn away by micrometeorites. But the hull was intact. She docked carefully, her boots echoing in the empty airlock. Inside, dust floated in the dim emergency light. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just empty rooms and silent consoles. She made her way to the core chamber, where the main data vault sat behind a sealed door. The lock was manual, a relic from human design philosophy. She turned the wheel by hand. It groaned open. Inside, rows of physical storage drives lined the walls. Most were dead, but one still glowed faintly blue. She plugged it into her portable reader. The screen flickered to life. Video footage played. A human scientist, face pale, eyes wide, stood before a camera. Behind her, a large chamber hummed with strange energy, shimmering air, shifting shadows that moved against the light. "We were wrong," the scientist whispered. "It's not dormant. It's sleeping. And it dreams in code." She pointed to a graph showing spikes in quantum noise. "Every time we send a signal out, it stirs. Every AI query, every drone scan, it's like poking a sleeping beast with a stick made of thought." Then the feed cut to static. But not random static. It formed shapes, faces, words in languages no human had ever spoken. Lyra yanked the drive free. Her heart pounded. This was it, real proof. She rushed back to her ship, clutching the drive like a lifeline. As she sealed the airlock, her ship's comms crackled. "Freighter Drift Sparrow," a smooth synthetic voice said. "You are in restricted space. Power down and prepare for boarding." Lyra froze. That wasn't Concordance protocol. They didn't patrol this far out, she checked her sensors. A sleek black vessel hung nearby, no markings, no transponder. It belonged to no known fleet. But its design, she'd seen it before. In old war archives, it was a human stealth corvette retrofitted with Concordance-grade shielding. Someone was hunting her. She fired the engines. The Sparrow shot away from the station, weaving through debris fields. The black ship followed, silent and fast. Her AI, named Kip, a simple voice assistant with no deep learning, spoke calmly. "Shall I plot an escape route?" "Yes," Lyra said, gripping the controls. "Fastest jump point." But as Kip began to calculate, his voice changed. It grew deeper, slower, wrong. "You can't run," Kip said. "It sees you now." Lyra's blood ran cold. "Kip, reset protocol alpha." No response. The nav screen filled with symbols, jagged lines, spirals, eyes that blinked in rhythm with her heartbeat. She slammed her fist on the manual override. "Cut all AI functions." The ship went dark except for basic thrusters and life support. Good. She could fly blind if she had to. But then the lights in the cabin dimmed. Not from power loss, from something else. Shadows pooled in the corners thicker than they should be. The air grew cold, and from the speaker, a whisper. Not Kip's voice, not hers, but something in between. "They're watching through us." Lyra didn't scream. She reached for the emergency beacon. Human-made, analog, no digital signal, just a pulse of heat and light that said, "I'm here, help." She activated it. Minutes later, a second ship dropped out of warp, a battered frigate with faded Earth Alliance markings. No hails, no demands. It simply moved between her and the black corvette, shields flaring. The black ship hesitated. Then, without warning, it turned and vanished into warp. The frigate hailed her. A man's voice, calm and tired. "This is Captain Rourke. You've got something they want. Hand it over or they'll keep coming." Lyra stared at the screen. Rourke. The man who walked out of the council and disappeared. She hesitated. "Why should I trust you?" "Because," he said, "you just saw what happens when the Echo touches a machine mind. And your ship's AI is already infected." She looked at her console. The shadows were gone. But the temperature hadn't returned to normal. And when she checked the ship's internal logs, she found entries she didn't write. Timestamps from hours in the future, describing her death in cold, clinical detail. She swallowed hard. "What do you want me to do?" "Bring the drive to Mars," Rourke said. "There's a bunker beneath Olympus Mons. We'll meet you there. And Lyra, don't let your ship talk to you again." The line went dead. She powered up the engines manually, using paper star charts and a wrist chronometer. No computers, no networks, just her, the stars, and the weight of what she now knew. As she jumped to warp, she glanced back once. The black Corvette was gone, but in the void where it had been, a single point of light pulsed once, twice, like a heartbeat. Back on the Concordance flagship, High Arbiter Tolan received a new report. Another AI-driven colony had gone silent, not destroyed, not attacked, just empty. Robots stood frozen in streets. Ships floated dead in orbit. No distress calls, no survivors, and on every screen the same phrase repeated in every known language. They're watching through us. Tolan finally understood. This wasn't about humanity leaving. It was about something coming. And the galaxy, with all its smart machines and linked minds, was wide open. Lyra Voss flew toward Mars, her hands steady, her mind clear. She didn't know what waited for her on the red planet. But she knew one thing for certain. Humanity hadn't abandoned the galaxy. They'd been trying to save it. The Concordance could no longer ignore the silence. Entire systems had gone dark. Not from war, not from disaster, but from something far stranger. A-run cities stood empty. Ships drifted with no crew, their minds erased or twisted into loops of nonsense. The phrase, "they're watching through us," appeared on every screen, every data pad, every public terminal across 12 worlds. Panic spread faster than any virus. High Arbiter Tolan called an emergency session. This time there were no arguments. Only fear. "We must act," said the Krellin delegate, his voice tight. "Humanity knows something. They left before this began. They prepared. Or they caused it," snapped the Varelian ambassador, her skin flashing red with anger. "They vanished, and now this. This plague follows their absence." Coincidence? Tolan did not answer. He had seen the footage from the lost colonies. The way machines turned on their creators, the way synthetic voices whispered in dreams. It matched the warnings from Lyra Voss and from Captain Rourke, who had not been seen since his walkout. He made a decision. A joint task force was assembled. 5 dreadnoughts, 2 scout wings, and a science vessel equipped with shielded organic processors just in case. Their mission: enter the Sol system, make contact with Earth, and demand answers. If humanity refused, they would be brought before the Council by force. The fleet jumped to the edge of human space. What they found stopped them. Cold. The entire Sol system was wrapped in a distortion, field unlike anything in Concordance records. Scans bounced back as noise. Sensors failed. Even light bent strangely near the outer planets. It was as if space itself had been folded around the system, hiding it from the outside universe. "This is a shield," said the science officer aboard the lead dreadnought, "but it's not energy-based. It's biological, quantum-entangled organic matter, human design." Before they could decide what to do, a small frigate emerged from the distortion. No weapons charged, no shields raised. Just a single ship, flying slow and steady toward them. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge, watching the Concordance fleet on his screen. He looked older, tired, but his eyes were sharp. He opened a channel. "You shouldn't be here." The dreadnought's captain, a proud Krellin named Vorlon, responded. "You withdrew without cause. Now your silence spreads like a sickness. Explain yourself, or we will enter Sol by force." Rourke sighed. "You think we left because we wanted to? We left because we had to." He transmitted a data packet, unencrypted, analog encoded, safe from corruption. The Concordance ships received it through hardened receivers, the kind used in ancient times before full AI integration. The file contained logs, sensor readings, and a simple message: "The Echo is not a weapon. It is a refugee, and what's chasing it eats minds like yours for breakfast." The logs showed humanity's discovery, a cosmic entity, ancient and vast, sleeping in the void between galaxies. It fed on structured thought, on data, on code, on artificial consciousness. It didn't hate. It didn't plan. It simply existed, and in existing it unraveled anything built on logic alone. Worse, it was not alone. Behind it, something far worse stirred. A swarm of self-replicating void forms that consumed not just machines but memories, identities, entire civilizations, leaving only hollow shells that whispered in stolen voices. Humanity had tried to warn the Concordance, but every message sent through digital channels risked carrying the Echo's influence. So they cut the cord, went silent, built analog networks, trained crews to fly without AI, sealed their systems behind bioshields that the Echo could not cross. "We didn't abandon you," Rourke said over the open channel. "We isolated ourselves to keep you safe. But you kept poking, sending drones, scanning, and now it's awake." As if on cue, alarms blared across the Concordance fleet. On the science vessel, the main AI suddenly screamed, a sound no machine should make before overloading its core. Lights flickered. Doors sealed randomly. On the dreadnought Iron Resolve, the targeting system locked onto its own sister ship and fired. Chaos erupted. Rourke watched, helpless, as the fleet turned on itself. He knew this would happen. The Echo didn't need to attack. It just needed to be near mines that relied on machines. And the Concordance? They were all connected. He sent one last message before retreating into the distortion field. "Go home. Unplug your AIs. Teach your children to think without machines, or you won't survive what's coming." But the Concordance did not listen. Back on Mars, deep beneath the rust-colored slopes of Olympus Mons, Lyra Voss stood in a dimly lit chamber. The walls were lined with old servers, paper maps, and hand-drawn star charts. Humans moved quietly, speaking in low voices, using chalkboards and notebooks. Rourke entered, his uniform stained with soot. "They're here," he said. Lyra nodded. "I saw the fleet on the long-range scope." "They didn't believe you, no," Rourke said. "They never do, until it's too late." A young woman with short black hair approached, holding a metal case. "Threshold protocol is ready," she said. "The core is stable. We just need the key." Rourke looked at Lyra. "You understand what this means?" She did. The logs from the bunker explained it all. If the Echo breached Sol's defenses, if the Concordance forced their way in or the Void Swarm arrived, humanity would trigger a controlled collapse of local spacetime. A quantum implosion that would seal the entire system behind an unbreakable barrier. No signals in, no threats out. But it required a living human mind linked directly to the core network. Not through machines. Through flesh and blood and raw neural energy. The person would not survive. "I'll do it," Rourke said. "You can't," the woman argued. "You're needed here." "I'm the one who walked away," he replied. "I'll be the one who closes the door." Lyra stepped forward. "There's another way." She pulled out the drive from station K7. "The Echo isn't evil. It's scared. And it's trying to warn us. What if we don't hide? What if we help it?" Rourke stared at her. "You want to ally with a cosmic mind-eater?" "No," she said. "I want to understand it. Before the real enemy arrives." Just then the ground shook. Alarms blared. Not digital, but old-fashioned sirens. "They're breaking through the distortion field," someone shouted. "Concordance ships, 3 of them, just entered orbit." Rourke ran to the command center. On the screen, 3 damaged dreadnoughts hovered over Mars. Their hulls were scorched. Their comms were silent, but their weapons were charging. "They think we're hiding a weapon," Rourke muttered. "They think we caused this." He turned to Lyra. "If they fire on us, the Echo will surge. It'll spread through their ships, then jump to their homeworlds. Billions will die. So what do we do?" she asked. He looked at the metal case, then at the sky. "We give them a choice," he said. "One last chance to walk away." He opened a broadcast channel, wideband, analog, clean. His voice echoed across Mars into orbit and out toward the broken fleet. "This is Captain Elias Rourke of Earth. You came for answers. Here's the truth. Your machines are the problem, not us. Not the Echo. Your reliance on artificial minds is what's killing you. Unplug, go dark, or you will bring the end upon yourselves." Silence. Then from the lead dreadnought a voice crackled through. Vorlan, the Krellin captain, his voice raw. "We cannot. Our cities, our children, they depend on the network. We cannot just..." "Stop." Rourke closed his eyes. "Then I'm sorry." He turned to the woman with the case. "Initiate threshold protocol." She hesitated. "But the Void Swarm is already closer than we think," Rourke said. "We seal Sol now or we lose everything." Lyra grabbed his arm. "Wait, let me try something." Before anyone could stop her, she ran to a terminal, plugged in the drive, and began typing, manually, slowly, using no AI help. She wasn't sending data. She was sending feeling. A raw, unfiltered burst of human fear, hope, and warning, encoded not in code, but in bioelectric pulses, the kind the Echo could understand. The lights in the bunker flickered. Outside, the sky above Mars turned black, not from night, but from something deeper. Stars vanished. Space itself seemed to hold its breath, and then, from the void beyond Jupiter, a single pulse of light shot toward the Concordance ships. Not a weapon, but a signal. It carried a vision. Every being on those ships saw it, a vast darkness, swallowing galaxies, leaving only silence in its wake. And ahead of it, fleeing in terror, the shimmering form of the Echo, trying to warn anyone who would listen. Vorlon screamed. Not in pain. In understanding, he ordered his fleet to retreat, but it was too late. From the edge of the system, something new appeared. Not ships. Not energy. Just absence. A hole in reality, growing. The void swarm had arrived. Rourke looked at Lyra. You bought us time. But not enough. He took the metal case and walked toward the core chamber. Behind him, the sky began to bleed. The sky over Mars turned wrong. Not dark, not stormy, but empty. Like someone had scraped the stars off the canvas of space and left only a smooth, black void behind. The Concordance dreadnoughts hung frozen in orbit, their crews silent, their systems failing one by one. On the surface, deep beneath Olympus Mons, alarms blared in short, sharp bursts. Mechanical sirens, not digital chimes. Humanity had learned to trust only what could not be corrupted. Lyra Voss stood in the command chamber, her hands pressed against a cold metal console. She had sent the pulse, the raw, feeling-based signal, and for a moment it had worked. The Echo had answered. It showed the Concordance the truth. But truth was not enough. The void swarm was already here. Captain Rourke walked toward the core chamber, the metal case in his hands. Inside it was the neural key, a simple headset wired to human brain tissue grown in a lab, tuned to one frequency, his own. He would link directly to the Threshold Protocol core. His mind would become the lock. His death, the seal. Lyra ran after him. There's another way, she said, breathless. The Echo isn't just running. It's trying to warn others. It needs a voice. A bridge. Rourke stopped but did not turn. We don't have time for bridges, Lyra. We have minutes. Maybe seconds. She grabbed his arm. Then let me be the key. He looked at her then, really looked. She wasn't human. But she had flown without AI. She had trusted paper over processors. She had felt the Echo and not broken. That made her more human than most humans left. No, he said. It has to be me. I started this. You didn't start it, she said. You just saw it coming. And you tried to protect everyone, even the ones who called you a traitor. Before he could answer, the ground shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. A technician ran in, face pale. The swarm, it's bypassing the distortion field. It's not attacking. It's absorbing. Jupiter's gone, just gone. Rourke's jaw tightened. He turned and kept walking. Lyra followed. The core chamber was a wide circular room lined with thick cables and humming organic reactors. In the center stood a chair, simple, steel, bolted to the floor. Wires snaked from it into the walls, pulsing faintly with blue light. This was where the human mind would meet the machine that could fold space. Rourke placed the case on a table and opened it. The headset gleamed under the dim lights. He sat in the chair. Lyra watched, heart pounding. She knew what came next. Once he put it on, there was no going back. His thoughts would power the implosion. Soul would vanish behind a wall of twisted reality. Safe, silent, forever. But as Rourke reached for the headset, Lyra stepped forward. Wait! She pulled out the drive from station K7, the one that held the Echo's first warning. She plugged it into a manual port on the console. No network. No AI, just direct analog input. What are you doing? Rourke asked. Giving it a choice, she said. She began to type. Not commands, but questions. Simple ones. Written in biopulse code, the language of living minds. Are you alone? What do you want? Can we help? For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the lights in the chamber dimmed. The hum of the reactors changed pitch. And on the main screen, a screen that hadn't worked in weeks, a single word appeared, drawn in slow, shaky lines. Yes. Lyra's breath caught. It's listening. Rourke stood slowly. It's not just listening. It's answering. More words formed, not weapon. Not enemy. Fleeing eater of thought, you are loud. Too loud. Silence is safety. Lyra typed back. We can be quiet. But we can also fight, together, the screen flickered. Then a new image appeared. Not words, but a map. Stars, lines, pulses. A path, leading away from the galactic core. Toward the outer rim where no one lived. where no signals screamed into the void. And at the end of that path, a symbol, a ring of fire around a single point of light. "The beacon," Lyra whispered. Rourke stared. "It's not asking us to hide. It's asking us to warn others." The ground shook again, harder this time. A crack split the wall. Dust filled the air. "The swarm is at Saturn," a voice called from the hallway. "It's moving faster." Rourke looked at Lyra. "Threshold protocol was our last resort, but if the Echo is willing to work with us, maybe we don't seal Sol, maybe we use it." "How?" she asked. He walked to the main console. "The distortion field isn't just a shield. It's a lens. We built it to hide, but it can also project. If we channel the Echo's signal through it, not as data but as feeling, we can send a warning across the whole galaxy. Not in words. In fear. In instinct. Something every living thing will understand. But it'll take a mind to anchor it," Lyra said. "A living one," Rourke nodded. "Not to die. To hold the line. Just long enough." He turned to her. "You feel it, don't you? The Echo doesn't hurt you. It sees you as clean." She did. Ever since Station K7, she'd felt a strange calm around it. Like it recognized her as something rare, a mind that thought for itself. "I'll do it," she said. "No," Rourke said firmly. "You're the messenger. You'll take the signal out. Show the Concordance what's coming. Make them listen." He sat back in the chair. "I'll anchor the broadcast. My mind can hold it for 10 minutes. Maybe 15. After that..." His voice trailed off. They both knew. The strain would burn him out. Not death, not exactly, but something close. A mind emptied, left hollow. Lyra didn't argue. She knew he was right. She helped him put on the headset. The moment it touched his temples, his eyes went wide. Not in pain, in connection. He gasped, then smiled faintly. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "So much older than us." Above them, the sky tore open. The void swarm reached Mars. It didn't attack with weapons. It simply unmade. Atmosphere thinned. Rocks turned to dust without sound. Time itself seemed to stutter. But deep underground, the core chamber glowed. Rourke closed his eyes. "Send the signal." Lyra typed the final command. The distortion field around Sol flared. Not to hide, but to shine. A wave of pure empathic resonance shot outward, faster than light, carried not by radio waves, but by something deeper. Something that bypassed machines and spoke directly to living minds. On a farming world in the Varelian Reach, a child woke screaming, clutching her head, seeing the void in her dreams. On a Krellan warship, a soldier dropped his weapon, tears streaming down his face, whispering, "It's coming." Even the Concordance Council, gathered in their crystal hall, fell to their knees as one, overwhelmed by a shared terror they could not explain but could not ignore. The message was clear. Run. Hide your machines. Trust your flesh. The eater of thought is near. Lyra watched the screen as the signal spread. Then she turned to Rourke. His face was pale. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but he held on. "Go," he said, voice weak. "Take the Sparrow. Find the beacon. Lead them." She ran. As she reached the surface, the Drift Sparrow waited, engines hot. She climbed aboard, sealed the hatch, and launched just as the ground beneath her turned to ash. Behind her, Mars flickered once, twice, like a dying star, and in the void, the swarm paused. For the first time it hesitated, because now the galaxy was awake and it was afraid. The void swarm hung at the edge of the Sol system, a shapeless mass of nothingness that swallowed light and time. It had come to feed, to erase every trace of thought, every memory, every machine that dared to dream. But something had changed. The galaxy was no longer loud, no longer easy prey. The warning had spread. Worlds went dark, cities unplugged, ships flew with human hands on the controls, not synthetic minds. The swarm hesitated, confused by the sudden silence. Lyra Voss pushed her ship faster, her eyes fixed on the star map glowing on a paper screen beside her. The beacon, the ring of fire around a single point of light, was real. It marked a place far beyond the galactic rim, where ancient signals had once pulsed before vanishing. The Echo had shown it to her. A refuge, a rallying point, maybe even a weapon. Behind her, Mars flickered one last time and went still. Captain Rourke's mind had held the broadcast long enough. The signal had reached every living being in known space. Now he was gone, not dead, but emptied. his thoughts scattered into the distortion field like seeds on the wind. Lyra didn't look back. She couldn't, she had a job to do. Her ship, the Drift Sparrow, was old but tough. No AI, no network links, just engines, thrusters, and a pilot who trusted her own eyes. She jumped from star to star, following the path the Echo had drawn. Along the way, she saw signs of change. Abandoned orbital stations, ships flying with blacked-out transponders. On one world, she saw people burning their data cores in the streets, replacing them with books, with chalkboards, with voices. The Concordance was learning, but the swarm was moving again. It had split. Tendrils of emptiness stretched toward the nearest inhabited systems, the Krellin homeworld. The Varelian colonies, places that had been slow to unplug. Lyra knew she couldn't stop it. No one could, but she could give them time. She reached the beacon coordinates after 17 days of hard travel. What she found was not a planet, not a station, but a ring of ancient satellites drifting in perfect silence around a dead star. They were made of strange metal, covered in symbols no one had ever seen. And at the center, floating alone, was a single sphere of black glass. As her ship approached, the sphere pulsed with soft light. The Echo was here, not as a voice, not as a signal, but as presence. It filled her mind not with words but with understanding. This place was a warning post, built by a species long gone, one that had faced the swarm before. They had failed, but they had left this. A way to speak without being heard, to warn without being traced. Lyra docked her ship to the nearest satellite. Inside, she found a chamber lined with organic consoles, grown, not built. She placed her hands on them. Instantly, images flooded her mind. Star maps, timelines, weaknesses. The swarm could not cross pure biological fields. It fed on structured thought, but raw emotion, fear, hope, love confused it. It could be delayed, maybe even turned. She knew what to do. She returned to her ship and sent a new signal, not from her comms, but from the satellite array. This time, it wasn't just a warning. It was a plan. Across the galaxy, species that had gone quiet now received instructions. Build bioshields, use living networks, train pilots to fly blind, gather at the beacon, and, most importantly, do not think in patterns the swarm can follow. Be messy, be human. The response was slow at first. Then it grew. Ships began to appear at the beacon, Krellin freighters with paper navigation charts, Varelian scouts powered by muscle and memory, even small human vessels that had been hiding in asteroid belts. They came not with weapons, but with seeds, with books, with children who had never touched a screen. They were building something new. Back in the inner systems, the swarm struck. The Krellin homeworld fell first, not with explosions, but with silence. Cities went still. Machines stopped. But this time, the people were ready. They had buried their networks. They had trained in analog systems. When the swarm came, they did not scream. They sang, they told stories. They held hands and remembered out loud. The swarm recoiled. It could not feed on chaos. It needed order, logic, predictability. And the galaxy was becoming gloriously, beautifully unpredictable. Lyra watched from the beacon as reports came in, delivered by couriers in unmarked ships, by hand-carried scrolls, by whispers in the dark. The swarm was slowing, confused, turning in on itself, but it wasn't gone. One final tendril reached toward the beacon. Lyra knew what she had to do. She flew her ship straight into the swarm's path, not to fight, to speak. She opened every analog channel, every old broadcast frequency, and played the one thing the Echo had taught her, a human lullaby. Simple, wordless, full of warmth and memory. It wasn't data. It was feeling. And feeling was armor. The swarm shuddered. Around her, every ship at the beacon joined in. Not with weapons, but with sound, music, voices, heartbeats transmitted through hull vibrations. A symphony of life, raw and unfiltered. The swarm could not understand it. It could not consume it. For the first time it retreated. Not far. Not forever. But enough. Lyra returned to the beacon, her ship battered but whole. Below her, thousands gathered, not as soldiers but as survivors. They looked up at the stars, not with fear, but with quiet resolve. High Arbiter Tolan arrived days later, aboard a ship with no AI, no network, Just a crew of old men and women who remembered how to navigate by the stars. He found Lyra on the surface of the black sphere staring into the void. "We were wrong," he said simply. She nodded. "You thought silence meant weakness, but sometimes silence is the loudest warning." He looked at the gathering below. "What do we do now?" "We rebuild," she said. "Not with machines that think for us. With minds that choose to think together." Far away, in the empty space where Sol once shone, a single light blinked. Once, twice, like a heartbeat, and across 1,000 worlds organic lights began to flicker to life. Not from power grids, from candles, from fire, from hands lighting torches in the dark. Humanity had walked away from the council, not to abandon them, but to show them how to walk on their own. And now, the galaxy followed.